platform to connect mentors, or there should be. And look, one thing I have learned, and I still don't do it, but with personal training, like you said, is that you're supposed to keep a journal of where you're at. I can never be bothered to do that, but I know that it works. So very cool. All right, well, I think, as you know, because I've told you before, Give It a Nudge and Nudge Group is a platform for you guys to sort of tell everybody out there what it is that you do. And I'm a big believer, and I've talked about this countless times, both with you as well, Laura, about stories, and you need to understand what your story is so that you can tell other people what their stories is so they can align with that, and then everybody comes together and magic happens. So, Laura, why don't you tell me what the story is of sort of how you came to where we are now in terms of level, and where you're actually at, so that everyone out there knows where you're at in terms of level.
Yeah, sure. So I think Rich and I have been working together, 8 weeks now?
Yeah.
And we met on Antler program. So Antler is a VC fund that also runs an incubator.
Yep.
So they started a 10-week program back at the beginning of June, which was interesting because that was the point that we weren't allowed in offices and they didn't know how to run it virtually. So I think it's been an experience for all of us. And the first week is meeting 100 people that also want to start a startup, and you're trying to work
100 people.
100 people.
Wow.
All online as well, so that was kind of made it interesting. So it was lots of 10-minute one-to-ones, so you get sick of your own voice.
Speed dating.
Yeah, essentially, for founders. And look at us.
Yeah.
But it's all about trying to find someone that shares the same values as you and kind of has similar problem statements. And I think Rich and I kind of met right at the beginning, but Rich was working on something else and we were kind of just exploring different things. But we just started sort of chatting about kind of mentoring and what we'd both done in the space. So I think we'd talked in January about the fact I wanted to do something around mentoring in startups and how could we do more about that and what could we do. And Rich at the same time, without knowing it, was doing something for the same for product people. So we kind of started there, realised we'd both been trying to tackle the same problem space, but from slightly different angles. And then kind of after about an hour whiteboard session and an A3 bit of paper with scribbles all over it, kind of level kind of happened in terms of it was more than just mentoring. It's what are you learning, what are you doing about it, and what else is there in terms of coaching or learning courses, and how can we kind of bring it all together and just make it easier for people.
Wow. And what took you to Antler yourself? You know, how did you end up at Antler? It's not just somewhere you sort of pop up. Right?
Yeah, you don't suddenly decide to start a startup.
No.
I think it's like I've worked in the startup space in Australia for the last 5 years and a few years before that in the UK. And I think you just get addicted to startup life and the growth and what you learn during that time.
With that.
And I think that kind of comes out in level as well, because I think often in those, kind of from my experience, you end up being the first person in a team, and then suddenly you've got a team of 15 and life has really changed and the business has changed, and like how can you keep up with that growth? And it's huge and it's tough, and it's like I think it's something like this. The idea is that it helps you and kind of help you develop as you go. So it isn't just suddenly one day you realise that you're like, oh, I don't know how to do this. But also if you feel like that, you've got a whole bunch of other people that have probably been through it already and can at least talk you through it and offer you some advice.
And did you know about Antler, or did Antler approach you, or was it a friend, or how did you?
It was a friend, so I think it's one of those like startup community, everyone was talking about it, like we should all do it, like everybody kind of wants to do their own thing at some point. And I think it was timing wise, like I didn't think I'd get in. I thought it would be one of those things you have to apply for a few times. So I applied thinking, oh, it'll be really good experience to go through the interview process, and then maybe next year I'll get in. And I was lucky enough to get in, so then I was like, well, I've got to give it a go. Cool. The worst thing that's going to happen is you spend 10 weeks learning about startups and nothing else happens.
I remember you saying that exact words to me. I think it's an incredible program. I would love to spend some time to get to know it more, and I keep saying it's something I'll do, but it's one of those things that's just a time issue. But and it's been interesting to hear so far. I want to know, once you decided and you sort of committed, what's been the hardest thing from that point onwards to where we are today? And also explain where we are today. So maybe, Laura, you start?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me is kind of getting out of your own way, because I think there's a whole bunch of excuses not to do a startup, right? Especially with two of us. You're trying to do everything. So you're well out of your comfort zone on a daily basis, just in terms of skills and everything else. And I think we've both been used to roles where we had teams and budget and kind of all those wonderful things that you don't have as a startup. And I think you can really kind of question your own ability and kind of just be your own biggest problem. But I think the kind of good thing with having 100 other people doing it is actually you've got all these people that are also having the same doubts, having the same issues. So you've got someone to talk to about it. And I think as soon as you realise it's not just you, you kind of feel a little bit better. And I think sometimes you've just got to learn to back yourself, and that's tough. But we're working on it.
We had Gillian from Vamp on earlier. And I know you guys are looking for funding at the moment, and she was talking about having come from safety culture where the funding just flew at them like crazy. With Vamp, she had to be very selective about getting, as she said, the right kind of funding and saying no to the wrong kind of funding, even though you need the money. And that was one of the hardest things she found. And I imagine that's something that you're you know, you're obviously saying that's how you are. Is that something that you're experiencing now? Are you finding it difficult to assess who's really on the journey for the right reasons, or how are you finding that whole process of talking to investors?
So I think we're pretty early on in that kind of process, because like I say, we've only been doing it for 8 weeks. But I think even the conversations we've had so far, it's been really clear those people that get what we're trying to do and are in on it. And I think what we were saying the other day, it's almost these people that have had something come up in their career that they've needed mentors or people to help them with, so therefore they understand the value of it because they've had that experience, and they're so much like they're just bought in from the beginning. We almost don't even have to go down the rest of the route. And I think it's those people that we'd love to work with, because we really want people that, just believe what we believe, and we're all doing it for the right reasons, for the same reasons.
I've never had a mentor. I've always wanted one, but never had the time to find one, bizarrely. But I was asked to mentor someone in a structured mentoring program maybe 2-3 years ago, and I thought, why not? And having never had a mentor and never been a mentor, I didn't know what the hell was going on or what I was supposed to do, but I just went into it. And I mentored this girl, and I think I got more out of it than she did. I really did. And that surprised me and made me so happy at the same time. I got so much out of it. And we did it for a full year, and that's when the official program ended. We still speak quarterly now because I still get so much out of it. And I think, you know, I was very lucky I was paired, if you like, with someone that we happened to work very well together out of pure luck more than anything else. But I think you're right. And I think I had no idea as a mentor I would get so much back. And I think you're right, with the speed the world is moving at, the speed technology is moving at, the speed everything's moving at, the older you get, the more distance you do get. And it's not just the technology. It's the general way that different generations think. They think differently because they've been brought up in a different way.
Exactly.
And the only way you can learn that is by spending time with them, and you just don't have that opportunity. So I think from that place alone, it's hugely beneficial for everyone to start that. And I think people will start to get that, particularly if you can go out there and promote that. Who are you interested in hearing from potentially as mentors or people with a knowledge base or knowledge material they might want to share? And who should be signing up for the waitlist?
So I think it's getting a healthy mix of everybody. So people that maybe have had really interesting career journeys, so you've got into a role in a really kind of non-linear way. I think that's awesome because it's really inspirational. Somebody that's done a role for 15, 20 years and kind of wants to talk to you about their journey, what they've read, how they've got there, all of that's incredible. But I think also anyone that's early on in their career and wants to just kind of offer what they're up to. And I think it's kind of trying to get that really healthy mix of everybody. But then also from a kind of services point of view, like we are looking at trying to talk to coaches as well in terms of trying to match people with the right coaches, and the same with education providers, so you actually know which courses you want to do rather than just kind of doing a Google search and hoping that you pick the right one.